Thank you very, very much. I welcome you all in the name of Olodumare. I greet all our fathers and mothers in the house. Uh, Today we'll be discussing a very important and powerful topic, which is Arabism versus Islam, using the case of South Sudan as a case study. And I'll be going via the historical context before I really go into the topic proper, into what we're discussing this evening, which is to discuss the little history of Sudan. Sudan was once the largest, at least, colonial construct in Africa. At a point in time, most of Sudan was uh, was ruled by the Ottomans, and the most of Sudan was also ruled by the Arabs before it was finally taken over by the British. Sudan means the land of the blacks. That was what Sudan was all about. So it's from like an Arabic word called black people. So when you hear countries like Guinea, Guinea means the land of black people in Portuguese. So when the Portuguese got to Guinea, they found a lot of black people. They called Guinea a lot of black people, the land of black people. So those are derogatory African names. Those are derogatory African nationalities. And that's why it absolutely makes no sense when you see uh, black people come around who call themselves Pan Africanists, shouting on top of their voice, screaming on top of their lungs, and saying we should be proud of who we are. And when you take the intellectualism a little further, and you ask them the question, who are we? Who am I? They start getting sensitive. They say, we are proud Nigerians. We are proud Sudanese. We are proud Guineans. And you ask the question, who is a Sudanese? Where did we get the word Sudanese? I'm a proud Nigerian. Who is a proud Nigerian? I'm a proud Guinean. Who is a proud Guinean? You are a proud Guinean because they call you the land of the blacks, the land of the niggers. And when the word black is a racial construct that was developed and that was developed to racially discriminate economically, politically, socially, and even human wise against people of color. So this was what they did across West Africa, across Africa, and this was what the Europeans did. This was what the Arabs did. A form of colonizers who were not indigenous to the space Nigeria, are called out into the continent Africa. They just started discriminating against us based on our colors. So going back to Sudan, so it was called the land of the black people. Now the question you're supposed to ask yourself: are black people Arab? How the land of the black people become the land of the Arabs? How did that region of Sudan that used to be a bastion of Kemites, of indigenous African civilization, became a bastion of Arab supremacist ideology? So we have to ask our Islamist views. These are things that we need to actually sort out. These are things that we need to actually clarify. So these are important issues. These are important facts. These are things that we need to make sure that we actually understand where we're coming from and where we are going. And I'm talking about the history of Sudan. The area called Sudan used to be a place called the Nubian, where the Nubian kingdoms existed, where we have the Kush kingdoms, the ancient Kush kingdoms, the seat of empires, and the Kemites. And at the point in time, at the height of the power of the Kushites, they were once pharaohs in Egypt. They ruled Egypt. In fact, they built many pyramids in Egypt. That is why, apart from Egypt, Sudan has the largest number of pyramids in the world. If you go to Sudan, many people don't know. When people think about Egypt, they can think about pyramids of Egypt. But Sudan has one of the largest pyramids in the world. And who built the pyramids in Egypt? These in Sudan, these were black people. Black people built the pyramids in Egypt, in Sudan. And the area called the Nubian area was balkanized into two. Egypt took part of the southern part, while the Arab elites are the ones that uh, took over the northern part. Now, what is the relationship between the indigenous people of color with Arabs? How did they become? Why do we, like, anytime we talk about Sudan, the next thing is to talk about their Arab identity? This was not so. For close to 4,000 years, there was nothing Semitic civilization or Arab civilization was never and never part of Sudan. So how did we get here? So we got here via the incursion that happened in the 13th century. In the 13th century, there was a migration that took place from the Arabian Peninsula by a particular Arab tribe called the Jali tribe. So the Jali tribe was an Arab tribe. They came looking for land with their cattle, with their, I think this is making sense now for many of us that are talking, that we've experienced what we've experienced in Nigeria. So when they came in with their cattle, they settled along the Nubian Peninsula. So they settled there with the indigenous people. So when they got there, and when they got in there, they found a lot of indigenous Nubian people. And let me be very, sincere. When other empires were falling down, when other empires were being destroyed, the Nubian people the Kushites were able to survive for thousands of years. So they are a people that you cannot conquer via war. You cannot destroy them via war. You cannot take them down via war. You cannot destroy them via war. They cannot be conquered by violence. And I've always said there are two means in which indigenous people can be conquered. You can conquer people, or you can be exterminated. You can exterminate people by assimilation, and you can exterminate people by conquest. How were the Nubians? How were they exterminated? Now, can has anybody seen anybody coming out and say my ethnic nationality is Nubian, my ethnic identity is Nubian? I'm a Nubian. It doesn't exist anymore. It has been wiped out the surface of the earth, and it's no longer surviving. We are even lucky that some of us can still say we are Ijebu, we are Ekiti, we are Oyo. Sorry, excuse me. We can come out and say we have this ethnic identity. For some people it does not exist again. They've been wiped out the surface of the earth. They no longer exist. People don't need to put a gun to your head before you no longer exist on the surface of the earth. This is what some race has been doing. This has been what some ethnic nationalities have been doing. This has been what some people from different continents have been doing. This is what they've perfected, and this is what they will continue to do. If you allow them to do it to you, the world will move on. This is why we are here, in order to understand what's going on. This is not about spreading hate. This is about self-preservation. This is about discussing who we are. This is about discussing who we are. Now, going back to what I was saying, the Nubian people were conquered peacefully. It's on record. Several intellectuals have said it. There's a particular Arab Sudanese. His name was Amil Nasir. He's also said it. Said the Nubians were conquered peacefully via assimilation. So assimilation. And how are they? So they came in, the conquest. They came in. So they find out that okay, we cannot wage war against these people. So what they did was to go via a political and social process of the extermination of the Nubian people. So which was intermarriage, forced conversion, destruction and suppression of Nubian indigenous belief, suppression of Nubian culture, suppression of Nubian religion, suppression of the value system and the value construct of what makes people to be a Nubian. So that is why if you see people say, "Oh, I don't care. I don't care about my culture. I'm human first. Those kind of people are candidates for extermination. They might think they have no problem. They think everything is okay, but deep down they are marching towards extermination. This is what has been done. This is what has been done in history, and this is what we need to reverse. This ugly trend that we need to reverse. That this must not happen again, and this must not happen to us. So within 200 and 300 years, affirmatively, we can say that the Nubian, between the 1300 to 1600, the Nubian people that existed for close to 4,000 to 6,000 years disappeared from surface of the earth, and they started speaking Arabic. They started identifying with Arab culture, and they became Arabized Nubians. From Arabized Nubians, they became Arabized Sudanese. From Arabized Sudanese, they became Arab themselves. So they forget they no longer they no longer they could not actually identify for who they are again. And this was not what Islam did. It was due to a process of Arabization, which was done within 300, 200 years, and they disappeared from the surface of the earth. And if we want to talk about that in a sociological balance, it means we are talking about linguicide and cultural genocide and ethnic genocide. There are different forms of genocide. There are different forms of genocide. When you destroy language, it's a form of a genocide. If you destroy, if you wipe out a culture, it's a form of a genocide. If you destroy a value, it's a kind of a genocide. If you destroy a value, the history of a people, it's a form of a genocide. If you destroy and wipe out people themselves from the surface of the earth, it's a form of a genocide. If you displace people from their ancestral land, it's a form of a genocide. Then ask me this kind of question. Tell me if any of this is not happening in Nigeria. It's actually happening. You go to the middle belt of Nigeria, there are many people who are from different ethnic nationalities that they cannot even speak their mother tongue anymore. And those who want to glorify the construct called Nigeria will tell you that's progress. That's not progress. It's a destruction of who people are. It's a destruction that should not be allowed on motherland Africa. These are people that existed for thousands of years, but through the force of arms and nature, you are taking them and uprooting them from who they are. Now, let's talk about going back to Sudan. There was a time the Ottoman Turks also ruled administered part of Sudan. And lastly, I'll fast forward and talk about the invasion and conquest of Sudan by the Anglo-Egyptian army in 1898. Later on, it was firstly the Anglo-Egyptian conquest before the English finally pushed the British away, pushed the Egyptians away and they took over Sudan themselves and administered Sudan as who they are. And don't forget, there were two different Sudan. There was Northern Sudan and there was Southern Sudan. So just like the way there were two different Nigeria, there was Northern Nigeria and there was Southern Nigeria, administered differently. Administered differently. These were people that had different identity, they had different civilization, they had different idea of who they are. They were not the same. So this was the different Sudan that we had. So then it shouldn't be surprise us that there were at a point in time Lord Lugard was also an administrator in Sudan. The man who was responsible for the amalgamation of the northern and southern Nigeria together also played a very crucial part in the amalgamation of northern Sudan and southern Sudan together. Going by recent figures, in terms of the chaos, lives lost, and the war, the human casualty, the human collateral damages. Sorry to use that word, that has occurred via the amalgamation. More than 5 to 10 million people have been displaced and killed because of this amalgamation between northern and southern Sudan. And when we talk about Nigeria too, the northern and southern Nigeria. We all know about what happened during the Civil War. That during the Civil War, we lost close to 5 million people itself. And between from 1914 to this present moment, we all know that nothing less than 10 to 20 million people have been casualties of civil wars, unrest, ethnic wiping out, ethnic killings, state-sponsored terrorism against the indigenous people of the contraption called Nigeria. So it's all about, it's the same. The ideology is the ideology is the same. The problem is the same, because both ideology is centered on the extermination, the wiping out, the control, and the subjugation of people. And I say it without any fear or favor that most of the policies of the colonialists, especially the British, was based on racial supremacist ideology. That is why many people ask this question, because if you even go and read about the history of Northern Sudan and South Sudan, why did you amalgamate two disparate civilizations? What were you thinking? And the most aggregate, the most dangerous no the most dangerous thing to this thing was that southern Sudan used to be called in the north, the Arabized northern Sudanese used to see southern Sudan as places where they called race reservoir, slave reservoir. So this was where Arab slave traders, slave raiders, we armed themselves with guns, with sword, with all some forms of advanced, all forms of weapons, come into South Sudan and start raiding them, killing them, taking them as slaves to be sold into the Ottoman Empire and to be sold into the Arab world through the port of Zanzibar or the port of Mombasa in Kenya. This was what was done. Yet you knew all this history and you amalgamated these eternal enemies together. Now Lugard played a very crucial role, played a very, very crucial role. So it was just based on ethnic supremacy. Like, okay, these people do not matter. These people do not. You cannot allow these people to control their destiny, because that was when these decisions were made due to the experiences of slavery. This was black people were treated as slaves, as third class citizens across the world. So now imagine giving them power and they will now be relating with them as equals does not make sense. So it has to be on the racial supremacy, because they know the psychological power when you allow people to control their destiny. And don't forget, I forgot to state a very important point when I was talking about why names were given to different countries. I talked about Sudan, I talked about Guinea. The names that were given to these different countries, even though they are very, very insultive names, you call somebody a black person or a nigger, like Guinea. Guinea means nigger, black person in Portuguese. Just like the way Sudan means the this was the bad, it was a very insultive word. It means slavery, third class citizens. That was what the name, the Arab, the Arab settlers gave to the Nubian people, gave to the Darfur people, gave to the Dinka people, gave to the Noah people. When they met them in Sudan, this was the name they gave them. Then they met them in that area called Sudan along the Nile. So it was a very, very insultive word. And let me now even tell you something. Immediately after 1989, that the Egyptian, that the British conquered Sudan, so and they gave administrative power to the Arabs to control all the indigenous people. This was what they did, just like the way the British did the same thing and gave the Fulanis they gave them the necessary bias, did all sorts of manipulations to ensure that they were the ones who controlled our destiny. These are historical facts. If you want to bury your head in the sand and you don't want to listen to this, I cannot help you, because we have to actually understand where we're coming from. So we have to know where we're going. Failure to do this, we are not to do this, we cannot be able to chart our destiny. So going back to what I was discussing, all the African revolutionary leaders, even though nobody is perfect to the best of their ability. All the African revolutionary uh, leaders who who tried as much as possible to reverse this ugly trend. And they wanted to destroy the foundation of hegemony. They wanted to destroy the foundation of ethnic or white supremacy or Arab supremacy upon black indigenous people, were taken out and killed, sent to exile, and their ideology destroyed forever. For instance, let's look at Gold Coast in Ghana. The first thing this guy did, Kwame Nkrumah, was to change the name of Gold Coast and change it to Ghana. How can you come all the way from, because you stole our gold, looted our gold, you even stole the Asante stool that was made of gold. You wanted to justify this wickedness. The next thing you are calling us Gold Coast. We are never going to be a Gold Coast. We are going to be the ancient empire of Ghana that once existed as a wonderful, prosperous, and vibrant bastion of black civilization. So what happened to him? He was chased away. He was taken out. What happened to Thomas Sankara? The name of the French, Upper Volta. We like this river. Oh, we are going to we call it Volta River, and we are call that country Upper Volta. How dare you? These people have been existing for thousands of years. You walk in there, call them names that it was never theirs, and you think everything is going to be like this. It's not going to be like that. So Thomas Sankara, being a revolutionary, said no, we are not going to accept this. So he changed the name to Burkina Faso, the land of the upright. Like some. So what happened to him? He was killed. They used another puppet. They used another reactionary force, killed, cut into pieces, and his body burnt with acid. Until today, we don't even know. It's the case. The man who killed him is still running exile, running around, and those are the people that call themselves fellow Africans. So you have to understand. So that is why if you cannot change the name of Guinea, you dare not. You don't change the name of Guinea-Bissau, because those who gave you that name will come back and make an example of anybody who tries that. You cannot change the name of Nigeria. They will tell you why 1001 reason why you should love that Nigerian name, why your Yoruba identity is terrible, why you should keep short. You dare not give yourself a name. You must take the name of your slave masters. So the Sudanese, uh, when you look at Sudan, Sudan is an ethnic mixed country. Was never an Arab country. It is never an Arab country. That is why they still have a lot of problem in being accepted in the Arab world, because even the pure Gulf states they have a level of Arab homogeneity know that Sudan is not an Arab world. Where when you say Sudan is an Arab world, that means you are acknowledging and accepting the Arabization agenda that has been committed for over 400 years and that is ongoing, which was built on the extermination of millions of people, if not millions of people. This was what is ongoing. And we have to know why the Darfur crisis also happened in Sudan, and these are things. And these Arabization policies was what led to the SPLM, one of the biggest freedom fighter groups in Africa. I give them why they fought against Sudan, and they said they wanted their freedom. Why they wanted to get out of Nigeria, of Sudan. Just like the way we have in Nigeria, we call the Fulanization agenda. And some people come here and say, oh, it doesn't exist. Just keep quiet. In Sudan, let me give you this brief history in Sudan. After the amalgamation, and it's on record. I don't know that was the case for Nigeria. After the amalgamation of Nigeria in 1914, so from 1912 to 1920, 1930, northern Sudanese, Arab Sudanese elite were piling pressure on the British and to ensure that the Sudanese that the British military administration ensure that Sudan, that Sudan was amalgamated into one. They lobbied, they promised the British that they were going to continue to support the the exploitation of Sudan, because it was very it makes sense for them. They do not see the Southern Sudanese as people of equal they do not have the same racial class. So it is game for them to go into South Sudan, take the oil, take the humans, take the diamonds. They do not see them as equal. So it makes sense for them to go into that alliance with Britain. And they just told Britain, look, this is what we have. We are we embrace Arabization agenda. We believe in the Arab supremacy, and we are Islamists. And there's a difference between being a Muslim and being an Islamist. Because in South Sudan, we also have Muslims. The people of Darfur that are currently fighting, waging a brutal war of independence against Sudan. These people are also Muslims. So why are they fighting against Sudan? Why are they fighting against the Muslims? Why? So you have to understand all this context. So I'm trying to give the historical background so that we understand what Sudan is, what South Sudan is, and why we need to understand that even within the African continent, apart from the way we talk about Europe, there are some people who live on the African continent and still believe in supremacist agenda, that they should be at the top and while others should be down, and why they should subjugate others. This has always been the situation of things, and we must agree to this fact for us to properly settle this, for us to properly understand where we're coming from and where we're going. Failure to understand this is going to lead to a clash of civilization that is going to lead to the loss of 10 million, 20 million people, or 40 million people. We should not think about short-term solutions, because if we fail to answer these questions, our children will be forced to answer this question by conference or by conference. I have said it over and over. This has always been the trend of events across the world. It's not about preaching hate, it is about stating the truth as it is. So now, immediately after the amalgamation and everything was done, so the next thing that was done was that the Arab North started implementing the Arabization agenda, which was form of Arabism. I call it Arabism, just like the way we have, just like the way we have a political concept called Zionism. So Arabism is that you believe in the supremacist agenda, supremacist ideology, that the Arab culture, the Arab civilization, the Arab language, the Arab way of life is superior. The Arab history is superior to the indigenous people, is superior to other ethnic groups, is superior to other ethnic nationalities, is superior to other ethnic races. That is the Arab civilized. That is Arabism. That is what Arabism is all about. And this is what is being perpetrated in Mauritania. It is what is being perpetrated in Morocco against the Berbers, is what is being perpetrated against the Algerians against the Berbers. It's also in Algeria. Many people also do not know that there was a time close to 20 years from the 80s to the 90s that Algeria was also fighting a brutal civil war. Many people don't know, they call it a terrorism something. No, it was also an ethnic issue where the Berber people were saying, look, we are indigenous to this place. We are also light skinned like you guys. We are not Arabs. So that was one of the agreements for that peace treaty in 2002, was that Berber language was also acknowledged to be a national language. Go and check the history. So if you look at Mauritania, it's even more crazy. The statistics is very dangerous. In Mauritania, we have 30% pure black people. These are people, they are not Arabs. They do not see themselves as Arabs, and they do not identify as Arabs. And 40% of the people in Mauritania are Arabized half blacks. Arabized blacks. People who are as black as charcoal like you and I, but they see themselves as Arabs. Via 400 to 500 years of programming, gun put to their head, intermarriage, being killed, being programmed, being forcefully converted, being asked to denounce their language, being asked to denounce their value system, this being asked to denounce their language, but to denounce who they are. Then we also have to talk about the remaining. So the real Arabs in Mauritania are just 10 to 15%. So it's a case of the 50, a minority, a very handful minority, trying to tell the people what they should do, the way of life, trying to impose their way of life on the people. So this is what is currently happening, and everybody thinks the world is kumbaya. The world is not kumbaya. The world is a place of, the world is very, very volatile. The world is very, very volatile. So we have to understand this fact. Failure to understand this fact, we might not be able to face what is before us. And this was the last phase that even the white people in South Africa, the white settlers in South Africa, the Boers, the Afrikaners, wanted to do around this in the 70s and 80s, which was what led to the Soweto riots, which led to the killings of hundreds of secondary school, high school students, which were university students, which was what led to the radicalization of the freedom struggle in in South Africa. There was a policy that was brought out by the white apartheid regime in South Africa, which was that henceforth the Afrikaner language will be the language of communication, will be the official language of communication, official language of academics, of education in South Africa. They wanted to take it to that level, which was the Africanization of the South African people. That was what they wanted to take it on. That was what, because they knew they had to go through that. And how did the Afrikaners react? They reacted angrily. They reacted angrily. And how did the South Africa? They reacted angrily. They demonstrated. And what was the response of the government? They brought out guns and ammunition. They gunned them down. The reality is that we don't actually understand what's going on in Mauritania, what has happened in Sudan, what's happening in Morocco, what's happening in Algeria. Tens of scores of people are being killed every day. If you try to say this is who we are, if you try to say you are not Arab, you are gone down. So the same thing they did in South. So it is not about saying singling out the Arab people, the Afrikaners. And who are the Afrikaners? These are people that came from Netherlands, and even the British also joined them to perpetrate this hegemony. So you have to understand that this has always been what a particular people with a supremacist ideology do in construct, and they want to keep that construct to create an empire. Because if you want to create an empire, empires are built on the destruction of indigenous people. Empires are built on what? On hegemony. Empires are built on the exploitation of the weaker people, of the minority. And they've understood something, that in empire building, a small minority can rule and destroy a big majority. It has been proven over and over again. In the Sokoto Caliphate, the Fulanis were just 5 to 10% of the population, and they were ruling on the remaining 90% with an iron hand, just the way they are still doing in northern Nigeria today. But that was an empire building. If you look at what the Arabs also did, they did in Mauritania, what they did in Andalusia, in the in the Iberian Peninsula, that was the same thing. What did the British also do when they had the British Commonwealth Empire? The British Commonwealth Empire, the British were just 5 to 10%, and they were ruling almost 1/4 of the whole world. So a minority can rule the majority. A very, very organized, ideologically sound, radical, brutal, focused, resilient minority will subjugate a disoriented, disorganized minority, disorganized majority. So you can continue to shout, Yoruba people are 80 million, Yoruba people are 70 million. Mr. Man, you are going to go to the museum. You are going to walk into the museum with your agbada and babariga, and nothing will happen. Continue to speak Queen English in your cubicle. Continue to shout on top of your voice and think you produced Nobel Prize winners, you produced professors, you produced that. It does not matter. It does not matter. I have said it in different places. There are different pillars of civilization. There are different people who build civilization, and there are three trinities of civilization. One, there are people who build civilizations. Two, there are people who maintain civilizations, and there are people who what? Who exterminate, who destroy civilizations. A civilization, you can build it for 6,000 years. A civilization, you can build it for 10,000 years. A civilization, you can build it for 1 million years. But in 1 year, you can wipe out that entire civilization, and it's going to be buried right down in the dust of sand, in the sand, and it is never going to rise up again. Look around you, study history. That was why if you want to destroy a people, you will never allow them to understand their history. Now, I've been able to explain, at least using Sudan, explain the context and what has happened in Sudan and how Sudan became an Arabized country. Sudan was never an Arab country, it's an Arabized country. That is what it is. That is what it is. It was built on colonialism. It was built on hegemony. It was built on the wiping out of the indigenous people because they understood one thing. If you want to create Sudan, you have to destroy indigenous African tradition. You have to destroy the ethnic identity of people. You have to destroy the cultural identity of people. Just the way if you want to build a Nigeria based on the status quo, on a unitary system of government, you have to destroy the indigenous people. You have to take their lands away. You have to implement Ruga. You have to displace them from their indigenous roots. You have to take away who they are, and you have to program them to hate their identity. That is what Nigerianization is all about. And I said Nigerianization is at the top, Fulanization is at the second. That's it. And the oligarchy or plutocracy, sorry for the sociological jargons terms I'm using, are the other things that you need to implement later. So these are facts. These are things that you need to understand that is happening. We don't know that we are creating history, we are making history. We are at a very important crossroad. So immediately many of us started speaking out. Even General Olusegun Obasanjo said this is fulanization agenda. He knew what he was saying. He's not mad. He's not mad. He's not mad. Just the way the Arab elite hijacked the Sudanese project and they started molding it to reflect the Arabization agenda. Now let's separate Islam from Arabization. You see, there's a big difference between Islam and Arabism. And I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to give you three countries where this concept is going on. When
Are,
people talk,
Are, sorry. Do you want to take a little break? We
okay, okay, okay.
Before
So
you
I'll
go
be
to
talking.
Islam.
Okay, exactly, exactly. So I'll take a little break and people can ask questions. Thank
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Think Yoruba First. Please join the club if you are new here. And I encourage you to read the description of the club as well as the rules of engagement. If you have any question, please flash your mic. I don't think anyone has questions right now. Okay. Mr. Olanrewaju, do you have a question, sir?
No, no,
Okay. I think he
not
just
now.
come. Not now. Okay.
you.
Abdul Asiu has a question. Abdul Asiu, please ask your question.
Oh, okay. Sir, okay. Good evening. Good evening, sir, Mr. Are. Okay. Now, when you say when you talk about the Darfur is in the western part of Sudan, right? I think it lay credence to your the difference between Arabisms or Islamisms and being Muslims or just being Muslims, simply because these are also the Darfur people are in the northwestern part of Sudan and they are Muslims in their majority, but they are still fighting for their independence simply because the Arabized Sudanese, have hijacked the system. So and Mauritania too. I want you to throw more light on the Mauritanian issue because to me, what I see in Mauritania, I see a problem of racism because the Bahabas who are being prosecuted in the Maghribia in the north western part of Africa, they form a what I call they've been assimilated into what they call Arab Bahabas group in Mauritania, which they make up 30% of the population, and together they are the ones subjugating the others' ethnicity in Mauritania, irrespective of their religion. These 30% Arab Bahabas are in control. So I want you to touch more light on that as the conversation continues.
Thank you very much, my brother Abu Asil. It's happy to have you in the house. I'm so happy, even though you're also part of the people that is going to also join the conversation. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to issue of the four. You know, that issue of the four, I did not want to delve into it, but I'm going to go deeper. The four means, you know, uh, most of the time, anywhere we black people are, when external forces come into our midst, do you know what they do? They change the name of our land and start calling us the land of the black. So, and this ugly incident started becoming the norm 500, 400 years ago at the height of Arab imperialism and European imperialism, or we call it Western imperialism, against the indigenous people of Africa. I mean, we people of color, people who have the melanin. So, Darfur also means land of black people. If you don't know, in the local four language, it means the land of the black people. So, what happened in Darfur? So, the Darfur people, they've converted to Islam for more than 600, 700 years. They've been Muslims for a long time, practicing Muslims. So, these were the people of Darfur. So, in fact, there was a time that many of the Darfuri ruling elite intermarried with the Arab people just to gain acceptance into the major Arab ideology. That was the what. That was what they did. That was what they did in Darfur. You know. So and they were living peacefully, peacefully. But there's one thing the Darfuri people did that created problem for them. They were still a very strong and powerful majority in that region of Darfur, despite the fact that they were Muslims. They held on to their indigenous African value system. You know, you can be a Muslim and still believe that, oh, I have to respect my Yoruba, I have to respect my Yoruba culture, I have to embrace tolerance, I have to believe in the royal, in the, like, in Yoruba culture, we have obas, not emirs. Those are norms. In Yoruba culture, the woman must respect the husband, you know, all those kind of norms. Those are Yoruba culture. But you are a Muslim, but you are still practicing that. That was what we had in Darfur. So what we had in Darfur were Africanized Muslims. So you have to understand, they were Muslims, they were not Islamists. So by the time the Arabization agenda started, in immediately after amalgamation, and it became a big problem because the Darfuri people say, look, we are Muslims. If you want to destroy the people in the South Sudan and you want to force them into Muslims, to become Muslims, well, no problem. We don't have any problem with you. But don't attack us. We are Muslims. But the problem the Darfur people had was that they started questioning the kind of Islam, you know, Islamic theology that the Arab North was trying to impose on the rest of the country. So the ones were like, look, you don't force people to become Muslims. You don't do all those things. And they had problems. And therefore, the Darfuri Muslims were trying to say, okay, we are a unique people. We are black. With our region is called Darfur. It means the country of the black. We've been related with the Arabs for more than 1,000 years, and we want to have our identity. We will never be Arabs. That statement was what led to the problem. You know, what Omar Bashir carried out in Darfur. The Sudanese president that took over from Sudan, took over the military government in Sudan from 1989. So immediately they uttered that statement, we will be Muslims, but we will never be Arabized. That was how they had problem. And unfortunately for them, oil was also discovered in oil and diamond, gold, was also discovered, and gold was also discovered in Darfur. In fact, Darfur has one of the biggest deposits of gold in Africa. And they were in trouble because they became so rich. And the Darfur people were so calm, like, don't kill us again. We are Muslims like you. Why are you killing us? So that's what I'm trying to explain. There's a difference between Arabism and Islam. In fact, the people of Darfur, they still speak their indigenous African language, the Fori language, called the Fore ethnic group, the Fori language, and they started having problems. And do you know the people that started waging war against the Darfuris were the people who identified that we become Arabized Africans. And these were the people who formed this particular militia called the Janjaweed. The Janjaweed was created, it was a non-state actor, it was a kind of a private militia that was employed and created by the Arab Sudanese government in order to totally exterminate and displace the people of Darfur. So this was what they did. And it was not just only in Darfur, it also happened in the Blue Nile Mountain states. These were historically Muslims region, bastion of Islamic civilization, yet the Arab North wanted to get rid of them and wipe them out. Just like you have the question, I start asking. That's why when I want to advise people, what we have in Nigeria is not a religious issue. If you fall into that trap, especially if you are a Yoruba man, and you start saying Yoruba Muslim, Yoruba Christian, you've lost it. This is not a religious issue. This is a clash of civilization. This is Fulanization. This is a Fulani, you understand, nationalism, which was the basis on which the Nigerian project was built. They know. They know. The British are not going to take over Nigeria and give it to them. The British has given them Nigeria, and they have to do what they need to do to keep it as one. If there is no Fulanization agenda and Nigerianization agenda, Nigeria cannot remain one. You are hearing the bitter truth today. So those that are asking for Ruga, those that are trying to impose a particular elitist and feudal ideology to make sure that the minority rule the majority, they are the ones who love Nigeria. All of you guys looking for equality, all of you guys looking for egalitarianism, all of you guys looking for Nigeria that works for all. You guys don't love Nigeria. Don't love Nigeria. You guys are enemies of Nigeria. You don't know. Because you cannot change a system that was built to destroy you to favor you. You need to get out of that system. You need to. So the issue of Darfur, that was why this particular second in command, I think the second or third in command, General Dagolu, who was a Chadian anyway, was brought into Darfur as a militia. That's how he became and rose into the rank and became a general in the Sudanese army, wiping out Darfuri people. Before the people of Darfur also took up arms and started defending themselves. The Darfur now is a case of, it's a very, very crazy situation of things. Very, very volatile situation of things. That is the issue of Darfur. And we don't, it's a stalemate. Because the Darfuri people are saying something. We are Muslims. Yes, but we are blacks first. We are Muslims first, but we are Africans first. We will never become Arab. Because what the Northern Sudanese people were trying to do was to make the Darfuri people identify themselves as Arabs, as an Arab tribe. And they said, no, this is not true. We are Africans. So it is based on racism. Absolute racism. Before I go into the issue of Mauritania, I think I've been able to give a little explanation into that. It is racism and apartheid. Mr. Wasiu, was I able to talk about that for a little bit? Summarize? Mr.
I'm
Wasiu.
okay. I'm okay. No, you're okay. You're okay. You can go to Mauritania.
Many people don't know that in Yemen, 10% of the population of Yemen are blacks. Go and check it on the internet. 10 to 20% of the population of Yemen are black people, the descendants of slaves during the Arab slave trade. If I'm lying, Google now, take your phone and Google black people in Yemen. It's still the same case. And in fact, the case of Yemen is even terrible. If they want to do you want to do politics, you want to do advertisements, you do not see them on television. They have been taken out. It is called whitewashing of the media, whitewashing of the country. You don't know they exist. It is when you get down, you see your housemaid, the man sweeping on the floor, sweeping on the street, the man selling vegetables by the roadside. You say, start seeing black people, start asking yourself, are you sure this is Arab land? What is happening? You start getting shocked. These are the reality. Now let's go back to Mauritania. You see, Mauritania, it's a very sorry case. And Mauritania, I think, was the last country in recent time that was the last to ban slavery in the 21st century. And the issue of Mauritania is built on racial segregation, apartheid, and it's also built on social injustice against people of color. So the issue of Mauritania is it's still an ongoing case. And as regards to what my brother said, every historical context he gave was true. And I would love to come back and talk about Mauritania. Let's wait, because I want to talk about Islam, at least on the surface, so that people do not have a different perception. We are not here to talk about and disregard Islam. Abdulwasiu, my brother, because I have feedback messages from the back channel. We are here to actually talk intellectually and also benefit and also gain from what is happening. So I will talk about Islam, then come back to Mauritania, so that we can now expatiate, because I wanted to stay on South Sudan from now. So then after talking about Islam briefly, there's a response. Then I come back to Mauritania to actually affirm what I'm saying, what we've been saying. So about Arabism versus Islamization agenda, Arabism versus Islam. In fact, we're supposed to also talk about being a Muslim and being an Islamist. There's a big difference. There's a difference between being a pious and good Muslim and a religious Muslim and being an Islamist. Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, ISIS, those guys are Islamists. And that is why northern Nigeria is a proper breeding ground for terrorism, because there is a thin line. Many theologians in that part of the world do not know the difference between they cannot differentiate between Islamism and Islam. And when we talk about Islam, I'm not going to come here and tell you, oh, Christianity is good, Buddhism is good. These are our religion. And if you go through history, now, when the British people, the Portuguese people the Spanish people were wiping out indigenous people in America, were they not Christians? When the Aztecs, when the Catholic bishops, in fact, let me tell you one thing in what happened in Mexico, what we call Mexico now, Mexico. Now, the wiping out of the indigenous people of Aztec in Mexico was perpetrated by the Catholic bishops. They were the ones that were used as the Trojan horses. They were the ones who were giving out smallpox contaminated blankets. They contaminated the blankets and clothes, because it was during winter, with smallpox, and they were giving the indigenous people of the Aztecs. So by the time these people were taking it, it wiped them out in drove on an industrial scale. Close to 100 million people before the arrival of Columbus on the shores of what we call Hispaniola now, in Central America. So before he landed in that particular place, we had 100 million people living in North America. And by the time 300 years later, the indigenous people, their population was less than 10,000. So that was the level of the atrocity. It's even crazier than what anybody has done on the surface of the earth. And what were they using? Religion, Christianity. So it's not about anybody can weaponize anything to perpetrate evil. So I've been able to talk about this. Now let's talk about this Islam. Many people don't know that many of the greatest discoveries in the world was through Islam. In fact, apart from Roman Empire, the development we had during the Hellenic and the Pax Romana, Hellenic and the Roman civilization, it kind of the Romans took over from the Greeks. So from the Hellenism, it was that period was called Hellenism, philosophy and all the rest, education. So do you know the majority of the discovery in modern world, like in photography, light, in medicine, in surgery, were invented by Islamic scientists. The first university, the concept of university was built by Muslims. In fact, one of the second university in the world, some people say first, some people say second, was built by Mansa Musa, a Madinka Muslim in current day Mali. And there they had astronomy, there they had surgery and medicine, surgery, physics, mathematics, philosophy. Go and read about the University of Baghdad that was burnt down by the Mongolian army under Genghis Khan. Go and read about what happened in Granada, the Emirates of Granada, the Emirate of Cordoba, under the Andalusian Empire. Go and look at the beauty, the contribution of Islam. It was called the glorious period of Islam to science. To science. In fact, when it comes to hygienic public health policies, building architecture, it was copied from Islamic architects, Islamic intellectuals during the medieval period. I'm talking about the period of 1500 to 1800. I'm not a Muslim anyway. So if you see me talk this way, I'm talking based on historical facts. These are historical facts. And we need to actually understand the history and actually know what is going on. So Islam as a religion, it's not different from Christianity. It's not different from but the reality is we have to understand what people are using religion to do. Those who came into our shores, deposed our kings, killed our harbors, sold our people as slaves. They had Bible in their hands. They were attending churches on Sundays. They were attending churches on Sunday. I'm not abusing Christianity. Anybody can abuse Christianity, abuse Islam to propagate evil. And one of the biggest slave trade that happened in Africa was the Arab slave trade that led to the killing and wiping out of millions of Africans in East and Central Africa. So we have to understand this concept. We have to understand this concept. So when I say difference between Arabism and Islam, now I want to use 2-3 examples. If you understand what is going on between Iran and the remainder of many African Arab countries, the Iranians, despite the fact that they are Muslims, they kept on referring themselves as Persians. In fact, if you go to Iran, they still practice they use the Persian calendar, they still have many Persian customs. This has been one of the reasons why Iran has been a black sheep in that part of the world. Forget the propaganda. They don't see themselves. Many of the people of Iran still use Persian names. Just like you see Yoruba people Yoruba man can be a Muslim and still bearing Adedeji Adefioye, Afi. If you want to be totally Arabized, you are going to destroy your Yoruba names and start bearing Abdulhakim, Abdulhakim, Abdulwasiu. That's the bitter truth. If you want to be totally anglicized, because it's not even Christianization or Christianized or westernized, you are going to throw away your Yoruba name and you will start bearing Timothy Enoch Johnson, or you start bearing Washington Enoch, or start bearing funny names like James Hooker, Tyrant. It's funny names. I'm not trying to insult you, but this is a bit of truth. You've lost who you are. You've lost who you are. You've become westernized. You've become anglicized. You start bearing names like Wilson Graft Johnson. Meanwhile, you've never stepped all your life. You've lived all your life eating amala and ewedu at Oshodi bus stop, and nobody even gives a damn about you. That's a bitter truth. That is the difference. That is what we call westernization, Christianization, and Arabization. Westernization and Arabization, or Anglicization. You can be a good Muslim and still be a good Yoruba person. You can be a good Christian and still be a good Yoruba person. You can be an Isheshe worshipper and still be a good Yoruba person. What makes you a Yoruba person is bigger than the name you bear or the kind of thing you do. Look at Malaysia. Malaysia is a Muslim country but not an Arab country. They are two different things. Two different things. Bhutan is a Muslim country but not an Arab country. Indonesia is a Muslim country but not an Arab country. They maintain their decency, their civilization is still intact. Still intact. That's why you see the way those countries are progressing is different from what is happening in the Gulf countries. They are different things entirely. They are different things entirely. There's a difference between being an Arab and being a Muslim. And there's a difference between being a Christian and being a European. You can be a Christian all you like, and you can still be who you are. Look at the Ethiopians. The Ethiopians they've been Christians before the Europeans became Christians. Many people don't know this. The Europeans have been practicing Christianity before the Ethiopians have been practicing Christianity before the Europeans became Christians. And did they forget who they are? No. Vladimir Putin goes to church just like Angela Merkel. But there's nothing like brotherhood or solidarity because they know who they are. They are Russians first. That one is a German first. You have to understand so that you don't fall into the web of colonialism and imperialism. And I believe this is the 21st century. Due to the volume of knowledge out there, the historical context, and intellectuals out there, you should be able to separate these things. You separate these things so that you don't fall into trap. So that you don't fall into trap. And all these things. So I think I've been able to really summarize because I don't want us to take too much time. So already past an hour as regards to understanding Islam. So by then I will now quickly go into Mauritania, but I want people to respond to this. People should join us and people should also contribute. The moderator, Obìnrin Àkànṣe.
Okay, thank you, sir. So that was very interesting. So this is the thing. I'm going to ask a question that some people, I have to say, have asked in the past, and the question is, why does it matter? Why can't I just be, I mean, if the Arab comes and take over my land and I become Arab, why does it matter? Why do I have to care? Why do I have to retain my native identity? Why? Can't I just exist and just transform to whatever I become at that point? And isn't all I need to do is just to be able to care for myself and my family? Like, why does identity matters?
Okay, you want me to answer that
Yeah,
question?
and indirectly, let's say for Nigeria especially, why does it matter?
Oh,
Why can't I just be fulanized and just continue to live happily ever after? I mean,
okay, okay. It matters because the identity we have is actually our spirituality. It's true. I believe in the existence of the Almighty and that the Almighty created the human race. But it is true that it's also written in some in some religious book that the diversity that we all have in the whole world was also created by the Almighty at the Tower of Babel, that we should speak in different tongues. So if we should speak in different tongues and occupy different spaces of the heart and have different identity. Why are you now trying to force us into a Tower of Babel? That's my first, maybe it's a philosophical response and a rhetorical question answer. Secondly, your identity is who you are. If you cannot protect your identity, you can never be great. It's impossible. Your greatness is embedded in your identity. If you don't protect your identity, you are not going to be who you are. And anybody who tries, any culture, any policy that tries to enforce another identity on you is trying to turn you to a slave. And it's not a joke. Slavery is real. Slavery is real. Many people have been turned into slaves. Many people have been turned into slaves. For 400 years, 300 years, slavery existed in different parts of the world, especially on an industrial scale in the New World. Talking about the Americas, in Europe, and in the Ottoman Empire. So slavery is real. And one of the things, the atrocities of slavery is that it destroys the ethnic identity of people. And you take up a different identity, you take up a different philosophy, and you can never express who you are. And it's a crime against humanity to destroy the ethnic identity of people. It's a crime against humanity to destroy people. One of the things many people don't know, let me give you this thing. One of the atrocities and biggest offense during the Nuremberg trial against war, Nazi war criminals was that they were engaging in cultural genocide against the people of Poland, against the people, the Slavs in Ukraine, in Ukraine and Russia. That they were telling, they were perpetrating the Germanification agenda. Go and read up the Nuremberg trials. That was the things that got many of them hanged. If you don't know, that was what they were doing. But the hypocrisy is that because that evil was perpetrated against fellow Europeans, Caucasians, there had to be justice. But if the Arabs and the Europeans were perpetrating such against, which they had done anyway, if they perpetrated such against black people, they'd be telling us about reconciliation and reparations. Just like they were telling the South Africans to talk about reconciliation. Let's forgive and forget. Rainbow color, rainbow nation in South Africa. And yet you built intragenerational wealth via the destruction of our people. For years, you just want us to move on with nothing. Just like what they did to the black people, the American dream. Slavery was abolished, but they paid all the slave owners money so that they can forget slavery. Britain did it. They paid them millions of dollars in order so that they can give up slavery. While the slaves that were freed were given nothing. They became shoe shiners. They became bus conductors. They became beggars, sharecroppers. They became drudges of the society with nothing to start with. Absolutely nothing to start with. So this is what is going to happen to you. That particular little material benefit that you're getting now, maybe the next generation is not going to get it. And when you think you only live for yourself, you don't live for the coming generation, it shows how wicked you are. It shows how very selfish you are. It shows you don't have a conscience. So, because as a visionary, you live for the coming generation. That is what it is. That is what it is. That is what it is. So, I think I answered the question, and I want people to also ask questions. And before I finally go into the last part, maybe so that we can have a proper, we can have an exchange. People can also contribute, and because we don't want to stay too long here. Obìnrin Àkànṣe,
Yeah, I'm here.
did
Yoruba
I answer the
goddess.
question?
Yeah. So I actually did have, yeah, I did have a question, and I wanted to build on Obiri Akanshe's point. So okay. So what is the end goal of this this agenda in the Nigerian context? Is it about resources? Is it about power and control? I'm just trying to understand, like, what is this all for?
Well, thank you very much. You've answered the question. It's fundamentally one thing. They are building an empire. The word empire does not exist anymore because of people will say, oh, this is a bad word. We shouldn't talk about it. But empire still exists. Empire still exists. And the first thing is when you talk about the United States of America, it's an empire built on white supremacy. When you talk about the United Kingdom, British Commonwealth, it's an empire. When you talk about China, China is an empire. Don't get it twisted. It's an empire. That is what they are doing. Why they are doing what they are doing to the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, forcing them into concentration camp in the 21st century, where people still talk about human rights, and the world does not give a damn. The world does not give a damn. It's an empire. What the French people are doing to Francophone Africa, that's empire building, where you pay where you pay taxes for protection. An empire. The NATO, North Atlantic Transatlantic Organization, that's an empire. Where you have military, ECOMOG, those are empires. The European Union is an empire. It's an empire. Same currency, same economic, same deeds, the military parts and everything, the parliament. That is Roman Empire. It has been resuscitated. People don't tell you what it is. Just you don't need to. You don't stop listening to BBC and CNN, because the best way to achieve what you need to achieve now is to deceive people. It's an empire. It's an empire that has been built. So when you build all this up, so what they are doing in Nigeria is it's one thing. It's the building of an empire. It's a Fulani empire. I'm being forced to say that. The building of a Fulani empire. It is the finalization and the conclusion of the West African conquest that started in few centuries ago. Many people don't actually understand how strategic Nigeria is in the fight, in the conquest for who rules Africa. He who rules Africa will rule the world. I repeat, he who rules Africa will rule the world. We rule the world. So if you rule Africa, you control Africa, it's a matter of time before you get a permanent seat at the United Nations, where you can also start veto things. When people say you see Nigeria is the future superpower of the world of Africa, they know what they're saying. But the context in which they are saying it is where the hypocrisy lies. So there is an internal war in who controls the destiny of Nigeria. And unfortunately, the Yoruba people have not realized this yet. We're just starting to realize. That is why we want to jump through the window and flee from this burning house. That's why I've been so calm in my presentation this evening. But we have to. It's a solemn discussion, very emotional, because Africa has a population of nearly 1 billion people, and Nigeria has a population of close to 250 million people. So if you control and rule Africa, that means 200. 1/4 of Africa is in your hands. 1/4 of Africa is in your hands. So if you control 1/4 of Africa, that means you control the world. You control Africa. That means 1/4 of Africa people, your resources are under your control. And don't forget, the Fulani people are an African people. It's the bitter truth. Bauchi State Governor said it. They are in Mali, fighting for power. They are in Ghana, fighting for power. They are in Senegal, fighting for power. They are in Gambia, fighting for power. They are in Burkina Faso, fighting for power. They are in Niger, fighting for power. They are in Chad, fighting for power. They are in Ethiopia, fighting for power. They are in South Sudan, fighting for power. They are in Sudan, fighting for power. They are in Cameroon. In fact, the first Aijo was a Fulani man. They are in Niger, fighting for power. Fighting for power. So this is the reality. They are in Central African Republic fighting for power in close to 15 countries. So Nigeria is a prime target for people who are building who want to build such empire. And if you look at the constitution of Nigeria, it's a unitary state. If you go and read your empire, the Roman Empire, the Mongolian Empire, go and read about the Asantec Empire, go and read about the old Ghana Empire, go and look at the old Songhai Empire, go and read at all the empires of old, go and read about Andalus, go and read about the Abbasid Empire, go and read the Abyssinate, go and read about the Zanzibar Emirate, go and read about the Ottoman Empire, go and read about the Caesaris, the Russian Empire, go and read about the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You are going to realize there is one fundamental thing. Those who designed the 1999 Constitution did not design that Constitution to give you 24-hour electricity, did not design that Constitution to give you good roads, did not design that Constitution to make your life better. They designed that Constitution to gain power for a particular ethnic race, for a particular region. They themselves know Nigeria is not true, Nigeria is not just, but let us have a discussion. They know that. And why will you do that? It's all about empire. Now, it's empire building. Maybe I should talk about Nigeria as a Fulani empire. Make it a topic and we can go deep. I don't care what anybody says. It's a Fulani empire. Many people say, oh, your people are also part of them. Stop calling us out. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. Do you know that when the Ottoman Turks wanted to conquer Constantinople, do you know that the machinery that was used to conquer Constantinople was built by a Christian Hungarian scientist? His name was Urban. That was the biggest cannon as at that particular period of time, because there was no way they could break down the wall of Constantinople with the normal cannons. Urban went to them and said, look, he first went to the emperor of the Byzantine Empire in Constantinople and said, look, let me build this empire for you. This one said, nobody has ever attacked Constantinople. We don't need it. He left. He was a mercenary, brilliant man, Urban, an Hungarian. He went to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire and said, let me build this thing for you for money. He built it, and Constantinople was conquered, one of the biggest. So if you think your fellow Yoruba man, your fellow Igbo man that is doing Yam Festival for you will not collect money to ensure that your ancestral lands are taken away, you are deceiving yourself. They don't care. They don't care if the Sultan becomes the eternal president of Nigeria. Give them 2-3 oil wells. They will sign you out and they will go and give testimony in church. They will sign you out and they will go and be dancing at the Ogun shrine. They will sign you out and they will be doing Assalamu alaikum in our mosques in Yoruba land. They don't give a damn. This is the history. So, what do they want? It's all about power. It's all about building an empire. You cannot build an empire on empty stomach. So you need human resources to build it. So we have brilliant minds in the south, in the Igbos, the Yorubas, the Ijaws. So they need those people. So that's why you guys need to be in Nigeria, to continue to play football for them, to continue to do all sorts of things for them. Go and look at the people playing. Go and look at the national team in Mauritania. Football national team in Mauritania, they are athletics teams. Go and look at the national team in Saudi Arabia. Go and look at the national team of Mauritania, of Sudan. Go and look at those countries and come back to me. If what you don't see is that almost 60 to 70% of their teams are blacks. Has anybody done? We've not questioned what is happening. I thought I was going to see Arabs on the field playing. Where did you see these brothers? Those are Arabized African blacks. Talk to them, you'll be shocked. I've met a lot of them. I have some of them as friends. They've lost who they are. They are black on the skin, they are Arab in mind. That's Arabization. That's Arabization. It's the same thing the French did. You conquer by assimilation. You assimilate people and you have Francophonized Africans. Just like this particular man that did the coup in Guinea, Dumbuda or Dumburi. He's a mercenary in the French Legionnaire Army. It's a mercenary. They are the ones they use for coup in Africa. So they need to build this empire, and they are building it. So they need the market, they need the human resources, they need the lands. That is why people are being wiped out from the surface of the earth to take the land. And where are they targeting? The best fertile lands in the sub-region. Benue. River Benue is rich. Katsina Hala is rich. Habitable lands. Habitable lands with a lot of rich mineral deposits. Because if you need to build an empire, it has to be built along river lines. It needs to be built along river lines, river banks. So you need land, you need ports, you need a seaport. They need a direct sea line. So when people talk about that Amadou Bello said they would dip the sword of conquest into the Atlantic Ocean, they are talking on the economic line, the economic viability of why they need that empire and they need to have a port. Does it make sense for them to start building a road from the Gambia to take it into the Sokoto Caliphate when they can take time, Fulanize, Arabize as many Yorubas as possible to make sure they bully their way into the Atlantic Ocean? They've done it before. If the Hausa people can be exterminated by assimilation, then what makes you think the Yoruba people, they can't do the same thing to the Yoruba people? Go and look at what the number of ethnic nationalities that have been destroyed by these people for the past 200 years. Nations, nationalities into extinction. The only thing that the Hausa people only have now is the language. It's none of my business. If the Hausa people want to become like that, no, that's why we are learning from them. We don't want to be like them. We don't want to. And unfortunately, they think many of us, when we come to their land, we come to their space. We just want to look at things. We are learning. We see what has been done. That this is apartheid. This is racism. This is social stratification of the society. This is a caste system. when non-indigenous people displace the indigenous ruler and enforce themselves to become the new rulers. That's what they've done. Anyway, that is what the British aristocracy is all about. The Queen of England is from is a German from Augsburg, ruling house. Part Austria, part Germany. So it's a German, so it's normal. And after maybe 500, 700 years, they would have consolidated things, and you can be talking about prosperity. But by that time, this is the period of building an empire. They are creating history. They are creating the reality that their coming generation will benefit from. They don't think for themselves, they think for the generation that is to come. That is the difference between them and us. We will think about what are we going to eat. They think about power. So they want to build an empire out of Nigeria, is forging it into an empire. They want to take the land because you need land and water resources. That's why they tell you waterway bills. They want to control our land, they want to control the waters. And apart from the water is also spirituality. For to Yoruba people, water is spirituality. Look at our waters. Is it the Osun River that or Oba that you want to start controlling? You want to give a feudal Fulani federal government to control our waters? Now, these are the kind of things that in same countries it could have led to war. And with stomach. That's why anybody they just bring any policy and they don't give a damn. And we have nuisance that will come and defend it. It's normal. There are many people from South Sudan that cannot go back home. Immediately South Sudan was realized, they cannot go back home because they supported the Arab North in the destruction of their people. These are historical facts. Historical facts. So we have to be very, very careful. So this is why they do it.